Okay.
Welcome everyone to this next session on January 27th, 2022. This is session number 4 and a quick introduction about the Human in the Making Foundation. It is an organization aiming at educating, motivating, empowering, and enabling the individuals, families, and communities, and to encourage them to take part in contributing to the advancement of material, intellectual, scientific, and spiritual civilization of humanity. The following is a list of some of the most fundamental principles that are being promoted by the Human in the Making Foundation. Number 1, everyone has the right to live in a life that is characterized by honor and dignity. Number 2, the purpose of human life is for each individual to dedicate all of his or her resources to the service and the best interests of humanity. Number 3, the honor and dignity of any person are not defined by the color of his or her skin, nor by his or her economic and political status. His or her glory and honor reside in offering an unconditional service to the advancement, justice, peace, and unity of all. Number 4, the importance of the equality of rights and privileges for both men and women. Number 5, the abolishing of the extremes of wealth and poverty and the recognition of spiritual solutions and long-term humanitarian resolutions. Number 6, the harmony of true religion and true science and balanced relationship between faith and reason. And number 7, the importance of independent search after truth for every individual and refraining from imitation and blind obedience to anyone. And for more information, you are free to visit humaninthemaking.org. Dr. Riazati, welcome. I'm going to end this beautiful introduction. If there's anything else, please let me know.
Well, thank you so much, John, and thank you for organizing this setting for us and recording. The topic of tonight is what is really truth? Is truth something that we can easily comprehend? Is there anything called symbolic truth? If it is symbolic, what does that really mean? By end of this session, my aim is to at least introduce to you some concepts such as organic order. What does it mean by organic? What does it mean by order? And whether the purpose of seeking truth is to establish organic order. Is there anything called revelation? What does revelation really mean? Does revelation and social reality go hand in hand? What is really the revelation if you consider holistic reality? Does revelation belongs to one sector, whether it be science or religion? As you can see, I am creating a set of questions that leads us to a fundamental critical thinking about the truth. Does truth has anything to do with resurrection? Has anything to do with renewal? Can we follow truth of any type if there is no resurrection into it? What does resurrection means in reality? Does it really truth is relative, or it is absolute. What does really the term absolute means? It is truth goes through revelation or evolution, or both of them are true? Does that evolution is affected by the maturity of humankind? And what does maturity of humankind really means? Is there intellectual maturity that matters? It is a spiritual maturity. What does a spiritual really mean? Is truth contextual or it is universal? As I do not want to create a paradigm of confusion, but my aim is to create a paradigm shift from cultural definition of truth into some kind of platform for building civilization. Does culture contribute to understanding the truth? Is culture different from civilization? Is religion the product of culture, or culture is generated by religion? What does really religion mean? Is it what a majority of the people of the world mistakenly assumed, which has nothing to do with the reality of religion, and that is religious jurisprudence, which has to do with fiqh, do's and don'ts? What is it that we want to call truth? In another simpler format, is it appearance which is real? And if appearance is not real, does appearance leads us at least to real? Do we have any theoretical orientation, mathematical orientation, scientific orientation, philosophical orientation, religious orientation, to use that orientation to help us to understand the truth? So as you can see, a simple question about what is the truth, it requires many, many aspects that I just listed few of them. Let me give you some easy examples. Everybody on this platform that is hearing me, if you go into your innermost chamber of your heart, you for certainly think that you are the follower of truth. Otherwise, you would not follow. But is it really the truth that you are following, or it is an impression of the truth that you have been getting? And we are so convinced sometimes that what we believe is the truth that we even are ready to die for it and even to kill others for it. By just a glossary look at the world, you can see that we are not that far off of it. So the question is the truth subjective? If it is subjective, then how do you really find a common ground? Is there, as John Dewey wrote a book called A Common Fate? Or is there really a one common fate one common religion. What does it mean when it says this is a changeless fate of God, eternal in the past, eternal in the future? Is there really time and a space has anything to do with truth? If it is changeless, does it mean that your particular system of thinking should not be changed? Or there is some underneath reality that maybe never changes because time is simply a dimension of organizing the events by the mind, as Immanuel Kant rightly pointed out. So to make now things simple, why do we need to go after the truth? Does truth freeze us? Because certainly we do not want truth to freeze us, rather to free us. Free us from what? From the chains of mental or so-called spiritual, emotional slavery. Isn't that why we go after the truth? Because if we are happy with who we are, why should we even search for the truth? Is the truth, as many psychologists, such as Viktor Frankl, such as Abraham Maslow, say truth to an individual means what? It gives him or her a meaning. A meaning. A meaning is a truth. Is it really? See, I'm posing questions for you. Because one of the contracts that I have with you is not to give you an answer. Answer is only shows my perspective. But question can be everyone's. Because question is what really help us to examine our belief system. Do we really know everything about our own belief system? Do we believe that our belief system is universal? On what ground? What are the measurements for measuring the truth of something? Do you see where am I going? My aim is to show you that there is a reality which is hidden, and that is called truth. And everyone is after that hidden reality. At the same time, I am saying what Joseph Campbell called it a hero with 1,000 faces. Truth shall appear in different contexts. Some people become acquainted and attached to the context, and they lose track of that universal content. I give you an example of religion. Religion is the best way to show this fact. if they ask each one of you, this is not a religious forum, but I'm looking at religion from psychological and scientific perspective, and at least from philosophical perspective, religion, what is its aim? Why do we believe in religion? Should we believe in religion? Does really the belief makes you to be free? Many people believe, but they are prisoner of that belief system, isn't it? Is belief is what is important, or to become one with the purpose of that belief? Please pay attention to the distinction I'm making. Still, I am holding to the fact that the reason that the majority of the followers of religion have lost the purpose of religion is because they look at it very simplistically and in appearance and literal. And therefore, forgive me, please forgive me, although they claim to be metaphysical in their approach, their whole conceptualization of their belief system is materialistic. Please pay attention to that. Heaven, hell is materialistic. This world, next world, what do you mean by this and that? It shows they do not look at things in a cohesive, essential way of a system. And therefore, they take everything literal because they confine themselves in time and space. I give you an example. Let the dead bury the dead. What does that really mean? If I tell you, you send me to a psychologist. But if Jesus tells you, you never question. Why is that? Why? Is their statement really true if you take it literal? It's nonsense, because dead never bury the dead. If you want to, try it. One of your relatives, just drop him in a cemetery and then put that verse by his body, and hopefully by tomorrow morning he is buried. Do you see that? The concept such as return. What does return mean? See, the religious people, because they are literal, they are materialistic. Although the purpose of supposed religion is to free you from the bounds of material world. Return, or really? How can something return if hasn't gone? I go, I return. But I thought you believe in eternity, eternal. Please pay attention. why the people do not pay attention to the passages such as, I was there before Abraham was. What does that mean? Do you know why they don't pay attention to it? Because then you have to go deeper. Is there any difference between Jesus and Christ? The average reader says no. Oh, really? Was Jesus crucified or Christ was crucified? Was he really born? What do you mean? Anything that is born shall die. Don't worry about it. You see, religious people, the message that I'm underlining is that religious people are very materialistic if they do not comprehend the innermost component of a religion, which is to seek the truth. Truth is what in religion? Truth is that which creates unity. Religion, religio, to reunite. The same thing is for science. The same thing is for philosophy. The same thing is for psychology. The reason, in my humble opinion, that humanity has gotten stuck with these notions is because they have not trained their heart and their mind to ask questions. They think the people who ask questions, they are weak, they do not have faith. While asking questions is actually free you from your own limitations. No truth shall be undermined by questions. In fact, if somebody asks a question, provides an opportunity for the hearer to reflect on his own belief system. This is why the people who think reality is linear, they hate asking questions. Some people do not like philosophy. They burn the philosophical world. Why? Because philosophy says, don't take anything for granted. Ask questions. Truth is not going to be abolished by asking questions. There is a book, highly I recommend, Asking Questions by Bahia Nakhjavani. Read that book. Asking question means ask your understanding of what the reality is. Now, let me, with that piece, I go to another aspect of it. So really, truth is neither religious nor scientific, is beyond it. But both religion and science can help us to consider them as two wings for the soul and the mind of humanity to fly to the higher depths and levels of truth. Please pay attention, what did I do? True science through religion is not to bound us, to chain us, is to free us. One of them has to do with creating innermost emotions, as Albert Einstein called it, the feelings of awe, feelings of unconditional love. Another one, science, its aim is to make sure that every emotion is measured by a practical evidences. Otherwise, emotion will lead to commotion. See, it's very simple. From the day one that I know of philosophy, read Plato. Plato believed that heart and mind have to go together. If you leave one of them behind, you either lose the meaning of science or the objective of religion. There is a reason that Albert Einstein would say science without religion or religion without science is either one without another leads you to darkness. But for him, religion didn't mean set of dogmas. Religion was that love that you could experience. Please pay attention to these words. You could experience that love in every contact that you have with every element of universe. This is highly evolved, because then you get a meaning of life. Then your suffering has meaning. Then depression would not visit you, because depression is when you actually lose meaning in life. A meaning that should be universal. Now the question is, with all these introductory elements, do we need revelation? Or while Thomas Paine, P-A-I-N-E, in a book called The Age of Reason, he says, you tell me what is revelation? Because everything is being revealed every day. So what is revelation? You want to tell me you are looking at the same thing twice? I don't think so. Doesn't change is a sign of a revelation? And doesn't evolution is simply a systematic continuity to appreciate that revelation? Please pay attention to this thing. Darwin is our good friend. I don't know, some people don't like Darwin, but he was a good guy. He just didn't believe in this nonsense that religious people have created in the name of religion. I know more scientific platforms and more scientists that are more religious than even the religious followers. Because the people who are religious, please pay attention. By religion, I do not mean organizational dogma, organizational beliefs. Religion means that hidden force that helps us to reunite with our own selves and with the rest of cosmic reality. This is why Einstein, Bohr, they said, go after cosmic religion, not cultural religion. Don't go after this religion or that religion. Go after that force which is cosmic. That cosmic force is what the source of truth. Now, is it relative? Of course it's relative, because humanity matures, then the degree of the revelation also becomes proportion to the capacity of humankind. Perhaps this is what it meant when he says, I have so many things to tell you, but you cannot bear them now. The same thing appears in everything. You know, go to Plato. He didn't say everything because he didn't know everything. There is only one reality, which is all knowing, all wise. And that reality is a hidden reality that we call God, God. But God also can be a materialistic figure for us, especially religious followers. God is a creator. God is all-knowing. God. What do you mean all-knowing? Means he is not a stupid. Eh? So you used human attributes, negated it, and you gave it to an entity that is called God. While every philosopher who has rejected the notion of God, in fact, has rejected the notion that humanity has created of God. Read Nietzsche. Nietzsche is a very good guy to read because it shatters the grave of our understanding. I love his very famous passage in Gay Science. It is one of his famous works. God is dead. Everybody quotes him, but they don't quote what he said in Thus Said Zoroaster. When they ask him, God is dead? He said, yeah. And we have killed him. Where are you going, Nietzsche? He says, I'm going to cemetery. He says, why are you going there? He says, I'm going to bury that God, that perhaps a true God be resurrected. Please pay attention to the concepts such as resurrection of the dead from the grave. What is grave, ladies and gentlemen? Isn't grave all limitation? Doesn't every one of us has grave? So resurrection after 3 days, do you remember? Every day we have to resurrect. From what? From those boundaries that we have imposed upon ourselves, and we have called it the truth. Resurrection creates renewal. Read many books to understand this concept. My aim is, if I have to conclude, everybody is searching after the truth. everybody, because we are wired to search after that unknown. The problem comes when you claim what you have conceived is that unknown. While if we learn from each other, if we exercise dialogues rather than monologue, if we start culture of learning, if we understand the science of mind and science of heart, then you will see we get closer to the truth, and then we establish a new culture. There is a book, Rise and Fall of Roman Empire. Read that. Read the books such as Utopia by Thomas More. If you are religious, I do not know what religion do you belong to. But regardless, for every religious work that you read at least 10, 15 non-religious works. Do you know why? To make sure science of mind and science of heart go together. And last but not the least, understand the purpose of religion and a true religion. There is a book, an article by Abraham Maslow about the purpose of life of any individual. The purpose is to become self-actualized. Self-actualization is what gives you meaning. Self-actualization is the purpose of religion. Doesn't he say, kingdom of God is within thee, Jesus? Doesn't he say, Muhammad, see it? I want to show you it is in every religious system. But the people, because they never looked at it in a scientific and philosophical combined, I call it a spiritual manner, they missed the ball. When Muhammad says, you are trying to seek God in the heaven skies, while he only resides in your own heart. When he says, I am closer to you than your own vein. Have you ever thought about this thing? Please pay attention, or you can see in writings of Allah, I have created you rich, I have created you noble. And then at the end he says, turn thy face unto thine own self. But what is that self? See, you have to ask question from Muhammad, from Jesus, from Baha'u'llah, from Khan. Ask question. Don't be scared. What self? This transitory self? Go back to Gita by Krishna, attributed to Krishna. He suggested that that self is of two types. A self which separates you from the rest. A self which embodies everything in reality. We call that universal self. Does really these figures meant truth shall come to you is closer than your own vein if you consider the whole cosmic reality as one system, which is organic, which appears separated, but in fact, very connected. Please pay attention. When you see it in the religious term, one humanity, one world, let your vision be bold, embracing. Unless we exercise these things, we experience it in our daily life, we never can be a follower of the truth. That is my thesis for you tonight. That examine yourself. Ask question doesn't mean ask question from him or her, from John or Gilbert. Ask. Habib should ask from Habib. And be humble attitude. That if I have not understood it, it's good. I learn. How do I measure whether I am close to the truth? It's very simple. As a psychotherapist, it's a very simple measure. Any notion that you have, mentally, emotionally, practically, that alienates you from your own true self. That is an illusion, is not truth. When there is a duality within you, on surface, you show love, but within you, there is seeds of hate, duality. How can you look at yourself as a researcher after the truth? When we, within our own self, we look at the world in a binary fashion. How can truth be binary? Please pay attention. Faithful against the religion. Is that really a search after the truth? When you divide people based on races, based on color, based on nationality, search after the truth. I tell you as a psychotherapist, the people who do not ask this question, they become more and more hypocrite. That hypocrisy becomes their culture. And they don't realize it. Institution then will be used to uphold that hypocrisy. This is why we have an institutionalized religion. We have an institutionalized racism. Please look at it. Look at how should we evaluate whether we are the seeker after the truth. I have to ask myself, if I'm a, say, Christian, I'm a communist, I'm a capitalist, I'm Republican, do I really know what are these things all about? Because my mommy, my daddy was Muslim, Christian, Republican, Democrat. Does my culture makes me, or I have to build the culture? What is the difference between culture and tradition? Read a book by Arnold Toynbee, Change and Habit. This is one of the famous works. Yeah, I'm giving you all of these sources for you to humble you, that don't think that you know the truth or you have the truth. Truth doesn't belong to you. We may belong to the truth. We may, relatively speaking. Truth is neither your property, neither your color. Truth doesn't have any colors. Rumi said it beautifully. Truth is colorless, but when it comes in the domain of time and space, it has manifold colors. The people who are after truth that recognize in the realm of colors to seek that colorless. That colorless, universal is what we call truth. Do you see that? If we do that, then we do not fear change. We do not fear destruction of the old dogma. We actually appreciate revelation. And then we, moreover, link the revelation to the evolution. That's beautiful. We then know that symbolic realities are actually spiritual or mental realities. But in order to become understandable, they use physical phenomena. I give you an example. Let's see, I give some good example. Jesus, when he says in Matthew chapter 24, a star shall fall, very good. Then this happens, then that happens. Do you really, Jim, a sleepy Jim, do you really look at these things as literal? And then you tell me you're a spiritual, you're not materialistic, we should not be material. Just really materialistic only means the person who holds money, or materialism worse than money, tangible things are those untangible beliefs that you are holding and you have a hard time to let go. Which materialism is harder to let go? Attachment. Attachment? What is attachment? I want to be detached. Oh, really? How are you becoming detached? By separating yourself from the world? Well, I don't think that is a good way. Be in the world, but not be of the world. Live in LA, live in New York, but don't allow the culture of materialism to impact you. Don't become the son of the culture. Create culture. Don't become victim of what's happened tomorrow. Create tomorrow. Past doesn't exist. Future hasn't come. It is now that it comes. This is why truth has many aspects. Perhaps next time I want to look at the influence of the culture on truth and show you how our cultural foldings influences our perception of the truth, while the truth is not cultural, shouldn't be cultural. And also, I will show you in the next session that in order to reach truth, you never have to assume that you hold the truth. That is very significant. Third, remember, truth is like a light, appears in everything, but is not in anything. Get used to of seeing the truth in different lamps. Don't become the worshiper of lamps, because then you become materialistic. Then, please pay attention, I don't want to make anybody sad. You always are waiting for the truth to come, but you do not want him to come. Let me give you an example. I'm only telling you, I'm not going to tell anybody else. Look at Muslims, Christians, Jews. They are still waiting, isn't that right? And some people say, no, he has come, he has come. Examine it. Really, he has come? Finished? Done? You become again materialistic. So they are waiting, you think it has gone. Could it be the truth passes by continuously? Is there any reflection on why some work such as God passes by is written? Passes by, doesn't stay anywhere. Because if it stays everywhere, it's not anymore reality. It's contingent manifestation of perhaps a reality. Please pay attention. Assume you are a Christian. If they ask you what is your highest hope, it's a return of Christ. But if tomorrow morning, by God, Christ says, I'm here, here I am, you say, you go away. You are not that person, because you live only with that hope. But you do not want that hope to become materialized. And even if it is materialized, you know that that truth has to destroy your existing paradigm, and we may not be ready for it. Assume, I am not going to sadden you, assume if Jesus comes, what do you do with Christmas? Christmas is such a good season. If you are a businessman, Christmas is so good, it's a multi-billion dollars. I like. Not tomorrow, if somebody comes and says, I'm here, you say, go for it, my friend, go. Please don't show up. The whole structure will fall apart. Look at Muslim. Whether that 12th Imam is real or is not, right now it's a big business. We do everything for him to come. But in an innermost chamber of our heart, we say, please don't come. Because if you come, what am I going to do as a clergy? For God's sake, I have gone to a schooling to guide people, means to keep them in darkness. And the more they are in darkness, then the more money I make. Please don't show up. But in your name, we create a big temple. We create a well. We even enable it that you can talk to that hidden imam via internet. You can send him emails, but he never shows up. Because if he shows up, many things changes. Read a book by Toynbee. Civilizations change when the change is coming. Many people are not ready for a change. And in fact, majority of people don't like a change. So I hope that I confused you enough, like always, but at least I gave you some tips that before you try to judge others, whether they are holder of the truth or the seeker of the truth, ask yourself. Because I ended with this statement by Gandhi and Shoghi Effendi. Gandhi says, be the change that you would like to see in the world. Be that transformation. And Shoghi says, high ideals, glorified principles, high-rise buildings, temples, none of them are going to guarantee anything. This is why we have to be careful about appearance versus reality. He says there is only one thing that can safeguard the reality of your faith, and that is the degree in which your life manifests that transformation through that universal force, which you call it God, you call it revelation, you call it manifestation. Thank you. Any question? Please go for it. John?
Yes, we have a question from Mr. Albrecht Evanesian. His question is, Dr. Riazati, how do you address what existentialism puts forward about indeterminateness of truth, apart from one's personal participation in determining it? Not from a religious perspective, which obviously opposes existentialism, but from a scientific researcher's point of view that you are.
Yes, see, first we have to understand what is existentialism. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote a book under that title. When you talk about existentialism, you are talking about the universal truth. You are talking about that nobody holds the truth because everybody is a part of that truth. Please pay attention. I'm using philosophical system in a useful manner. Don't think that you are separated from truth, but at the same time, don't think you hold the truth. You understand, John? That is to say This is only on a practical way of looking at it. Theoretically, if you go into whether the God is like a sea and everything is like a drop, and that is a wrong notion. And that is a materialism again, because you have defined something which is metaphysical using the physical paradigm. You see that? So from philosophical point of view, pantheism, which is a result of existentialism, has some good values and some negative values. If you believe in some of the religious people believe that God is a reality, and in each one of us, every created being, we see a piece of it. No. This is why effulgence or revelation or manifestation becomes more important. Each one of us have an element within us that enable us through education to manifest that reality. But that reality is not a part of us. It is like the mirror and the sun. Sun gives shine to everything, every mirror, but no mirror is the sun. So as you can see, John, this terminology in philosophy means one thing, in psychology means something else, in sociology means something else. But the key point is there is a system, there is a force. That force comes into the system in terms of revealing and creates a necessary, cohesive, logical relationship. For a better understanding of this, I recommend two books: Process and Reality by Alfred North Whitehead and Religion in the Making by the same author, and a book by Sartre, Jean-Paul Sartre himself, called Existentialism. Sorry. Okay.
So there's another question,
Yeah.
and this question was about where you stated about truth and the nature of truth. This person asserts that truth is binary and that something is or is not. Where something is or is not, how can there be any other to be true or not?
Excellent. But hold on a second. See, I'm a humble guy, so don't give me a difficult question, then I get confused and my Zoom gets cut off and everything. But think, who says that the world is two-dimensional anyway? See, this is why I asked you, ask question about your assumptions. Who said that the world is binary anyway? Who told you that? Your culture told you? Your tradition told you? Isn't that true? That actually that is one way that your mind has been organized? Day and night. But you know there is no day or night. You say good evening, In Australia, they say, good morning. Who holds the truth here? Isn't that the truth that you are teaching as a binary is a dangerous code for fundamentalism, fanaticism, extremism? Sorry for saying these things. Whose truth anyway? Your truth or my truth? Or 7 billion people's truth? Why then? Your best friend Muhammad said when they asked him, what is the best way to go and find the truth? He said, there are as many ways to the truth as there are human beings. Oh my God, it seems that Muhammad didn't believe in a binary system. But please pay attention. What you may call the truth might be falsehood for me. This is why philosophers such as Socrates can't read Kant. Some of you say, why should I read Kant? Don't read Kant. Just examine. Question. My friend, is not, truth is not subjective. That it be two ways. Look at things in a manifold way. Then it humbles you. Then it shows you that truth is not what you have. That force that makes you to appreciate what others have is closer to the truth. Please pay attention. What does, for instance, a word such as Muslim mean? See, I'm looking at this from philosophical standpoint of view and psychological. Islam means peace. Islam, salam, religion of peace. Oh, peace between who? You evaluate your deeds, your beliefs, your relationship to the world, and then you tell me, are you really a Muslim? Please pay attention. I give you another example that don't think that I am only using Muslim. Baha'i. What does Baha'i mean? Baha'i. Baha'i, the word means glory. Follower of glory. What is glory? What is this thing now? The embodiment of human perfections. The one that is the full embodiment of human perfection, please raise your hand. None. So as you can see, these founders, they wanted to encourage us to get closer to the perfection, but never claim to be perfect. Then you think binary, because then if I'm perfect, then John is not perfect. And this binary thinking creates delusion, illusion, and woe. Read some passages such as, there are not to be found two people, he says, that inwardly and utterly they can be united. What does that really mean? I love you, honey. Really? Maybe you love honey, but you may not love me. Do you love me because I believe exactly the same thing that you believe? Or you love me because I think differently from you, and there are 7 billion ways of different ways, but all of them are pointing to the sun. Isn't that what you call unity in diversity? Do you see that, John? So binary thinking is actually, because I'm writing a book on it, one of the prime characteristic of fundamentalist organizations. Our way or highway. I am the truth. These things have to be understood holistically, because the truth doesn't have am, doesn't have I. It's holistic, is universal. You see that, John? So binary thinking is good if you want to separate yourself, but universal thinking is good if it serves the unification of human race. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask someone to unmute who has a question, who's posted to me in the chat.
Hi, my name is Shiraz, and you were talking about how people hoped for the manifestation of God to return, but when he returned, but they didn't actually want him to return. In 1,000 years, will the next manifestation of God be rejected, or do you think they will be accepted?
Yeah, I wish I had that crystal ball. But my friend, human nature is opposed to rejection of whatever does not uphold their subjective truth. How do we know that there is no more or less opposition? When more people are attuned to the universal truth. Up until now, it hasn't been the case. Should it be in 1,000 years? Well, depends on the maturity of humankind. A spiritual, mental, emotional understanding of oneness of humanity. So as you can see, my dear questioner, rather than predict, be an active participant in unfolding a civilization that would not reject the higher level of transformation of humanity, which you call it revelation. It can be an emanation, it can be an evolution, or it can be all the three. Please note that all the founders that I know of the religions, no matter who you are, what is your religion, they have warned us about the fact that there shall be a rejection. But that rejection is not something that God or your manifestation has written down and therefore it happens. No, because it may happen, they mention it. Please look at this thing not in a binary format, in a holistic format, and also give value on what humankind does. Because it is humankind that changes the course of these predictions. If we do not change, predictions can come one way or another, negative or positive. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Of course. John the Great, how many more hours do you have?
Good question. Good question. We have, I think, about Well, as long as you like, but I would realistically say up to 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Any other question?
We have one, and Jim Beret has a question. I hope I'm saying your name correctly.
Jim Barrett.
Very good. Go ahead.
Hello, Jim.
I'd like your thoughts on the word self-subsisting.
The truth is self-subsisting. What does self-subsisting mean? It means it's not dependent. What does dependent mean? It means it has limitation. See, I'm a basic guy, Jim. See, you have slept a little bit, now you can think better. Now I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
See, self-subsisting means for its existence does not need something else to aid it, right? That we call universal truth. That you call God, right? The source of all good is God. Read the tablet of Asl Kulla Khair, or the source of all good. Say, none of us are self-subsisting. Why? Because we are limited and we live in a domain of time and space. Because we live in the world that separates us by self, which is a lower self. The more this lower self converges towards that universal self, we experience, according to our capacity, the meaning of self-subsistence. Because we realize no force in the world can break us into pieces. We do not have any fear because we have organized our true self through love. Not a conditional love, because conditional love cannot be self-subsisting. Cosmic love, universal love. When he says, love me, that me is not a person, is that subsisting force. When the people get attached to the personage, then they lose to be the follower of self-subsistence. So as you can see, we try to become self-subsisting in our own capacity. This is why it's called detachment, independence. This is why they say independent from everything save God. God means that universal self, force. You see that, Jim? So self-subsisting is not an object, is not a person, is not a world. It is a reality which has multi-universe within it. It is an organic reality which creates and destroys, creates a new level of self-subsistency and destroys all the barriers that keeps us to uphold the lower self. Lower self is what caused us to concentrate on our differences. Higher self is what helps us to see light when there is a war. See the peace in a war, and see some of the wars as a prelude for the peace, because that war can be war with the idle fancy and vain imagining. That war can be the war that has resulted from our separation from that reality. This is why we know of crisis and victory. Crisis means boundaries that the lower self, limited self, dependent self generates. Victory is the degree that we become independent of those boundaries. So as you can see again, I looked at it, Jim, from psychological, social, and philosophical perspective. And when you combine it, I call it a spiritual. Because a spirituality is actually a pathway to self-subsistency. And if we approach that path, then we maintain our own dignity, self-respect. We do not establish our relationship based on fear, based on needs. If we are holding power, we understand that self-subsistency means to use the power as a channel to serve. When you are separated, then you use power in order to uphold ignorance, in order to control. You only, in appearance, you follow humanitarian books, your religious books, but in fact, whether you are an individual or member of institutions, whether civilized or religious, you only have one religion, and that is Machiavellian. And you have only one holy book, and that is Prince. And your book has only one verse: the end justifies the means. So you use humanity as a means to serve you, lower self, not the universal self. And that is where, Jim, selflessness means. Selflessness doesn't mean don't have an opinion of your own, do not have identity of your own. Selfless means never forget that universal self within you, that self-subsistent reality which is around you. Blessed is the Bab who said, "You are above me, on my left, on my right, beneath me." And blessed Muhammad who said, "Wherever I look is the face of God." That is called getting close to self-subsistency, but we never get there. And the only way to exercise it is what Kant, Plato, Krishna, Baha'u'llah outlined in a very simple formula. Whatever you do, ask yourself, how does it help that cosmic reality? Because remember, you are not alone. Remember, whatever you do in the East impacts the West. Read Carl Jung and his famous work, Synchronicity. And then you understand why it has been said, if you kill one person, you have killed the whole universe. You see that? That whole is self-subsisting, not the part. And these attributes cannot be given to that metaphysical reality which we call God, because God doesn't have a self that be consistent or inconsistent. These are only attributes of the manifestations that creates order in the universe. Thank you for the good question. Okay, John, any other question? What happened to Mr. Hakim? He didn't ask me any question today.
No questions tonight. No. However, it is about time for us to get going. I see, Fawad, you've raised your hand. Because we are getting close to our hard stop, if we could ask this question, and I know Dr. Riazati, you may want to take it, but we will need to still end by midnight here.
Okay, how long do we have?
We have 3 minutes and some seconds.
Okay,
Fawad, please ask your question.
John, go.
All right, Fawad, I'm going to unmute you now. Here we go.
Sure. Somehow, as we know and we describe in this world, there is a five real or five world, which is we call like a mineral world, vegetable world, animal world, and human world. So if vegetable could talk and we ask them, who is God? What do you think the vegetable is going to answer?
Very good. I say it simply. They asked one of these holy figures, if you ask an ant, who is that universal force, Mr. God? Forgive the terminology, Mr. God, or Miss God, or Mrs. God. The Imam answers, you know, the ant says, God is an ant whose antennas is bigger than all the antennas. That means all these kingdoms are only in this world, and every kingdom imagines that reality according to his own comprehension. This, I just give you 2 more minutes. Read Feuerbach, the book Essence of Religion. This is what he says. He says, we have been told that God made man in his image. He says, they all gotten it wrong. The actual phrase should be, man made God in his own image. Because we think that that universal force, unseen force, has to have attributes of us. He has an ear, he's all knowing, all hearing, all seeing. Feuerbach said, give me a break. The self-subsisting doesn't see, doesn't hear, doesn't need to hear. So what Feuerbach, Nietzsche, Kant did, they said, understand it. And Rumi said the same thing. Whatever you say about anything only shows where you stand in relation to that thing. It doesn't say anything about that thing. And have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next session will be February 10, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That is February 10, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you.
And thank you very much, John, for everything.